Larry Haas is standing by. He's a former White House official, senior fellow at the American Foreign Policy Council. Hey, Larry, good to see you as always. Hey, can I ask you about Tim Walz and your thoughts on that
Sure.
choice?
I think I previously said to you, Todd, that I thought that Harris should go with Josh Shapiro. But I must say, I've been impressed with Waltz. I think they are really clicking together. And I have since learned about a bit more about Waltz. You know, when he was in the House, he was rated the seventh most bipartisan member. He also represented a district that normally leans Republican. He defeated an incumbent Republican in his first race for the House. So he is going to have an appeal to Republican voters who may be undecided, independents. He certainly has his pulse on the heartland of America. And I think this is turning out to be quite an inspired choice. I mean, the last 2 weeks for Harris and now Harris Waltz has been about as good as anyone could have hoped.
Yeah, and there's something about his demeanor, Larry. Maybe you can talk to that. I mean, there's sort of this Minnesota down to earth, grassroots kind of common man approach, but he's also kind of funny and he's humorous and he pokes fun at himself and then he kind of, he sort of has a lot of positivity as well. So, perhaps a different kind of politician than we've seen in Washington in the last well, I'd say 8 years or so.
I think that's right. Americans tend to like what are known as happy warriors, people who go out on the campaign trail and they talk up America as opposed to talking it down, and they smile, they laugh, they look like they're having a good time. This is Hubert Humphrey, it's Ronald Reagan, it's Bill Clinton. It's to some extent Barack Obama and even John McCain. These tend to be the people who America gravitates to. And I must say, you're seeing a tremendous contrast at the moment between the very dour Donald Trump, as echoed by J.D. Vance, and these two happy warriors who look like not only are they eager to win this election, but they're going to have a good time while they're doing it. And they're not going to leave any stone unturned. And they're going to go all over America and they're going to make the case and they're going to do it with a smile. And I think that's got great appeal to people.
I'm also wondering about those blue wall battleground states that you are so
Yes.
familiar with, Pennsylvania, Michigan,
Yes.
and Wisconsin. And, we're seeing J.D. Vance there, Donald Trump's running mate, and we're seeing
Right.
Harris and Walz there as well. Does it really come down to 3 out of 50 states?
Well, it does realistically in the following sense. Certainly mathematically, Harris can win if she puts together a different coalition. Oh, it would have to be Georgia and Arizona and Nevada and North Carolina, those kind of states. So there is a path there, but it is far easier to go through the blue wall and pick up Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Those three states tend to vote together. So it's no coincidence that the candidates who have won those states, they've won them as a block in recent elections, have tended to win the election, whether it was Trump or then it was Biden. And I do want you to know, Todd, that I've taken a look not only at national polls, but at state by state polls. And this enthusiasm for Harris and Waltz it's showing up in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin. And by the way, in Georgia and in Arizona. And the Harris team is now talking about expanding the map, which would force Donald Trump to defend states that, had it been Biden, he certainly would have had in the bag. So, yes, it starts with the blue wall, but it doesn't necessarily end there.
Tell me how concerned you think the Republicans are or are not by the Harris Walz ticket. The fact that right now they're getting a bump, there's a lot of momentum, so called Harris honeymoon here, and likely will last through the Democratic National convention in about 2 weeks from now, Larry. But then what? I mean, then you've got September and October, and you're already starting to see these attack ads saying that these two, Harris and Walz, are radicals, and that they are leftists, and that they are weak on crime, and all this kind of stuff, weak on the border. I mean, you can already hear the
Sure.
attack ads being prepped.
Sure. I don't. In answer to your question, I think they're worried, and they're worried about two things. First of all, Harris and Waltz, particularly Waltz, are not coming across as radical. So those attacks may fall a little bit flat. That, in combination with what I previously said about Waltz's background. So that's number one. But number two, they have to be concerned because they're watching Trump and JD Vance campaign. And it looks like they are attacking Harris and now Walz over things that people really don't care about. Like, what exactly is Kamala Harris's racial and heritage background? Is
Convicted
she
felons
African
to walk
American? Is she Indian American?
repeal
Who
policies, giving
cares?
up control of our
The
southern
American
border
people
to
want to
illegal
know
aliens and
who's
violent drug
going to
cartels.
lead this
Kamala
country
Harris and Tim
well
Walz,
into the
their
future.
failed wing
And if you
should
look at the
gain votes
contrast
nationally.
now, if you're a Republican operative hoping that Trump is going to win, you just have to wonder, what is Donald Trump and JD Vance thinking in terms of their campaign path to victory? Because they look like they're doing everything they can to further polarize the country and reduce their chances of winning, not expand them.
I also want to bring up a post that Donald Trump recently put up, Larry, on Truth Social, which is his chosen social media platform. And it is a long message, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. But what he's basically saying here, Larry, is he's sort of theorizing that somehow Joe Biden is going to crash the Democratic National Convention and try to take back the nomination from Kamala Harris. And Trump goes on to say that basically Biden was the victim of a coup by Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and lists a bunch of others who he calls on the lunatic left. We should also point out that whether intentional or otherwise, the name Kamala is misspelled in this, talking about how Joe Biden is going to try to make a comeback here. This kind of message, what's the intent? Who's the audience here?
It's all about Donald Trump reinforcing his base rather than expanding his base. It goes back to what I just said about the strangeness of the campaign that they're running. I can't imagine that a post like that helps him pick up one additional vote. I just can't imagine it. First of all, it's going to be proven nonsense in a few weeks when we have the convention. Secondly, anyone who's remotely familiar with what happened, which is most Americans, over the course of recent weeks knows that Joe Biden stepped aside. There was no coup. It's all nonsense. So, what do you get out of this? Do you get maybe another member of the base further energized and maybe get him out to the polls? I think those people were already going to go out to the polls if they're that devoted to Donald Trump. But the more he posts on social media, the more he gives these weird interviews, the more he gives these strange speeches, the more he reminds anyone undecided in America just what those chaotic 4 years were about. And I would say, all else being equal, he turns more people off and makes it less likely that they will vote for him.
Larry, good to see you as always, and thanks for taking the time. We'll be talking again.
Thank you, Todd.
Larry Haas with his read. Okay.